Hello dear parent, welcome to another week of video. So today we're going to continue the series about reactive attachment disorder, and it's going to follow up on last week's video where we talked about reactive attachment disorder and how it's different from the other attachment patterns. And today what we're going to focus on is the treatment, so to say, for reactive attachment disorder. So if you're a parent who maybe has a child who has been diagnosed, or maybe you suspect reactive attachment disorder, please stay tuned so that we can discuss this further and you can see what the options are. I would also recommend sharing it with a professional who you think might be open to learning more about reactive attachment disorder and how it's different from other attachment styles, patterns, and how the treatment is different for reactive attachment disorder. Again, there's no worksheet this week. Instead, there's going to be a link to a website which has lots and lots of information about reactive attachment disorder. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm RAD. I help Christian adoptive parents navigate the post-adoption season with faith, neuroscience, and connection to move through the trauma, the stress, and overwhelm to nurturing home, healing connections, and to walk in the grace and wisdom that God provides. And in this channel, I share gentle encouragement, faith-filled wisdom, and trauma-informed tools for adoptive parents walking through the real, the hard, and the beautiful journey of parenting. So let's dive in. I hope you have your tea, your coffee, and you can sit down with me as we discuss treatment for RAD. So I think I want to start first with saying that there is no one size fits all, unfortunately. Yes, we wished for that magic word to say, oh, this works, and we follow it and it works. But I know a lot of families have tried things like TBRI, which is trust-based relation intervention, EMDR, neurofeedback, psychiatric medication, maybe even residential treatment centers. And for some people they work, for some people they don't. And the reason why this is the case, that in some people maybe they don't, is because the effectiveness of the intervention depends on many things, such as the severity of the RAD, also the family system, where the family is in therapy or where the family is at. Another thing would also be where the child is at, if the child is open to receiving treatment or not. So based on this continuum, different treatment approaches might work, and some unfortunately might not work now, but they might work in the future. So, and another thing is, if your child is still in that survival mode, no technique will work. So you would have to wait until the child feels more of that felt safety, and you can still work on that felt safety first. So it's not like you're sitting down and you're not doing anything, but you can still be working on that felt safety so that things will progress. And we'll be talking about this later on today. So I think the first important step is to get an accurate diagnosis. I can't stress this enough. And you have to go to the right person who knows what is trauma-informed behaviors, and also who knows about reactive attachment disorder, because a lot of it, as we said last week, can be misdiagnosed as ADHD, for example, and the treatment is completely different. So it's very important to get the right diagnosis. The next step is that parents must be included in treatment, and this is not negotiable. So we've seen that before, traditional therapy excludes parents or just builds rapport with the child while dismissing the parents' experience, and this often causes more harm than good, because it can lead to what is called triangulation. So what happens in this case is that the child knows they're smart. So what happens is that they start playing one parent, one adult against the other. So they could be playing the therapist against the parent, and it becomes more about trying to manage this triangulation and who is to blame, who is not to blame, versus on focusing on the root causes of reactive attachment disorder and what can we do to support this reactive attachment disorder within the family. So it has to be a family system, and the parents have to be included. Now, it doesn't mean that you all need to go to therapy as a family. So it could look like just the parents, for example, going for therapy, and it's not to change so much within yourself, although there could be space for changing within yourself, but it's more about learning how to work together as a team. If you're a two-parent family, so you're going to learn how to work together as a parent team, and how to support your child so that your child is feeling this felt safety, and then the child is ready to process the trauma, the therapy for themselves. And again, I think I would find a therapist who specializes or who knows at least most of the things about reactive attachment disorder, because they can be looped in this triangulation, this believing the child. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't believe the child, we have to believe the child, but believing the child too much in their manipulation because of their reactive attachment disorder. So a skilled therapist will tactfully navigate all this trauma, all this behavior from the child, and will show the child that the therapist believes in them, but at the same time also believes in the parents, and we're working together as a team. We're not just individualizing therapy. Another important step is focusing on models which are based on developmental, so not specifically behavior focused. So we know that with reactive attachment disorders there's a lot of behaviors which we don't agree with, but at the same time knowing that the root cause of these behaviors is not just because the child is wanting to be mean or manipulative. It's just that the root cause is this reactive attachment disorder. So what as a therapist, and as a parent, what you have to learn to do is to navigate these root causes, which then will lead to better behavior. But it's not dealing with the individual behavior, because you'll be lost in all that and you won't be getting anywhere. It's kind of like you're on this rat wheel and you're just chasing this behavior, one behavior after the other, but you're not getting anywhere because you're not addressing those root causes. Few weeks back we also spoke about this iceberg thing. So if you're just addressing the tip of the iceberg and just kind of like focusing on one behavior, the other behavior surfaces, and then the other behavior surfaces, so that doesn't really get you anywhere. So what's important is focusing on the root causes, and that the root cause is mainly developmental trauma. So focusing on creating that big felt safety within the child, so that your child feels more safe, and slowly they start trusting more. Another thing will be emotional skill building. So when we see the behavior, again we ask what's happening underneath, and what's underneath is a lot of emotions. So dealing and tackling those emotions. Oh, you're feeling sad today, something is happening. So being curious, and we often talk about this wearing those detective glasses, where you're seeing, okay, so my child is lying. What is beneath that lying? What is she or he trying to achieve by lying? And then naming those emotions for them, what they are feeling because of their lying. So for example, your child is lying because they're afraid that they're going to get caught in something that they did. So if you're just going to punish the lying, it's not going to get you anywhere, because then your child is going to feel more defensive, more afraid maybe. So if maybe you figure this out, eventually you would, like just by analyzing and just being curious about those different behaviors, and you say, okay, my child is lying because she or he is afraid. So you sit down with them and you say, oh, I noticed that this and this happened, and if I was in your case, I would be feeling afraid because I would get caught, and I'm worried about the consequences. And having that open conversation, so that slowly your child starts building those skills that they need to start understanding what those big emotions mean for them, because sometimes it's just big emotions and they can't make sense of what those big emotions mean for them, how it impacts their brain and their thinking. Another thing which is very important is this. So there's going to be the therapist, there's going to be the parent, and most probably there will be a psychiatrist collaboration. So everybody working as a team, which is very important. When I used to work in mental health, in children's mental health, we used to have these care meetings, and they were fantastic. We used to bring everybody on board. all the providers, and we used to discuss the case, and everybody would contribute from their own different expertise, from their own different angle, and how we can proceed to support the family. And it used to be very helpful because you would know how the psychiatrist is thinking, and from their expertise what angle we should be taking as a therapist, for example. Something else that I want to talk about is when we talk about that felt safety, is that creating this felt safety does not mean that it's permissiveness. It's just a matter of creating this safety within the home, within the family, within the child, so that healing can happen. Because unless you create this felt safety, there's going to be this mistrust, this kind of like clashes and this conflict constantly. So it's very important to create that. That's why we keep on emphasizing the importance of creating felt safety. And usually in this case we create felt safety by having a lot of predictability. So the child will know by time their body starts reacting to that predictability, and they start feeling more safe. There is low stimulation, so there's not as much as possible. There isn't much of emotion instability, so a lot of yelling, a lot of shouting, a lot of slamming of doors, so there isn't all this happening. And then your child starts feeling more stable. Now I know that sometimes this happens, your child starts yelling and so on, so then it's how you as a parent react back is by remaining calm so that they feel calm again. So again, it could also be called emotional neutrality. So instead of flaring up when your child flares up, you would just remain calm. And another thing as well is having clear boundaries with low emotional charge. So like this is what happens in our home. We know like we don't do any yelling, and we're going to talk when everybody is calm, and that's it. Because otherwise when things flare up, we get tangled in this conflict and nothing gets resolved. And again, this felt safety will create healing and will also create that connection that especially children with reactive attachment disorder, they need to start seeing tiny steps for healing. Now, we already spoke about it in last video, and I'll be talking about it more in future videos, so make sure that you subscribe so that you know when more videos about this topic will come up. So what happens is, because it's very hard taking care of a child with reactive attachment disorder, it's emotionally taxing on you as a parent, because you're constantly trying to build this connection where there is no connection, and your own nervous system is trying to protect you. So it can also lead to, in your case, feeling numb, guilty, no emotions, this kind of like distant feeling. It's kind of like you're going through the motions without any emotions in them, and it's totally normal. So I always want to bring this up, and it's what we call blocked care. Because sometimes we're in the middle of it and we think, oh, why is this happening to me? Is this normal? I don't feel normal. I shouldn't be feeling like this. So I think it's very important that you understand that blocked care is real. Blocked care is something which is normal because the situation is so stressful. And again, the importance of what we discussed is that reactive attachment disorder is different from the 4 attachment patterns that we discussed before, where there is some form of attachment. And from time to time, it's also important to tap yourself on your back and you say, I am not broken, I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm doing the best that I can in this situation. So I think also, apart from supporting your child and having a team to support your child who has reactive attachment disorder, it's very important to support your own self as well. And how do you do that? So the first is regulating your own nervous system and finding, and again we'll be talking about this more as we go along, about when we discuss more topics about blocked care, but finding your own ways how you manage. So for example, maybe it's resting, maybe it's breathing, maybe it's saying a scripture, maybe it's just having that sensor break, like so cold air on your face or cold water on your face, or just stepping away if it is safe to do. So finding your own ways where you're going to not escalate yourself and how you're going to navigate your own nervous system. Another thing is, and I know that this is hard, we talk a lot about it, so it's access to respite and how that looks like for you. So even short breaks can help. And I know that a parent I spoke with, she said, by the time I coordinate everything, it's so exhausting that it's better if we just stay home. And it is, a challenge to find a good respite home and some support. But I encourage you to reach out to people, even if it's someone who can come to your home and you're co-parenting together this child. So even if it's just, 1 hour a week, it feels so much relaxing when there's someone home with you and you can balance things out. Another thing is reaching out to your faiths. I know that a lot of research says that faith makes us stronger. So just either reaching out to the church community and sharing as much as you can, because I know that also a lot of church members don't understand unless they do parent or they know someone who's parenting someone with reactive attachment disorder. But also reaching out to scriptures, maybe it's also listening to worship music, whatever it is that is healing for you, so that you can connect to God and you feel that you're not alone in all this. Another big thing is support groups or coaching. So connecting with like-minded and also parents who are going through it or who have gone through it and kind of like they're, progressed a lot down the line. But it feels so validating, so healing to know that others understand you. It's kind of like part of the healing process where you feel that, oh, people understand me. I'm not alone in this. It's normal how I'm feeling. It's not just that our family is like this. It's not that our family is broken. So reaching out, there's a lot of groups on for example, Facebook. I have my own Facebook group, private group as well, that you can ask to join as well. It's not about reactive attachment disorder, but it's about the post-adoption journey. And I'm sure there's lots of adoptive parents there who are navigating reactive attachment disorder. Another thing that I want to talk about is that you have to let go of the outcome. So sometimes we're fixated on fixing the child. But as hard as it is, you have to learn to let go. You can't control your child. We used to talk a lot about this in dialectical behavior therapy in DBT, is you have to focus on what you can control. So you can control your behaviors, you can control your nervous system, you can control how you can take care of yourself and have those little bit of breaks. And by letting go of the control over your child is also healing and freeing, because what happens is if we act to change a child, then it's going to wear us out, because we're constantly saying, oh, maybe this is going to change my child, or maybe if I do this, it's going to change my child. So what happens if we just let it be? And as people of faith, we can just let it to God and say, God, my situation, my feelings, how we are. I just leave it on to you and just give me the strength that I need. And it's hard, and it has to be, you have to constantly remind yourself and say, I can't control the behavior of my child. What I can control is creating this felt safety, for example, this structure in the home, this low emotion situation in the home where things are calmer in the home. And then slowly, by letting go, you start seeing a shift in your child. It might not happen immediately, but eventually it will happen, because you're focusing on yourself, you're creating this calm in the home, and then your child will sense it and will slowly start to shift. And I also want to talk about this. So sometimes we feel guilty about having to place a child out of a home for a short period of time, for a longer period of time, like for example therapeutic residential care. And I think some people don't talk about it, or some people don't seek it out because they feel guilty. But I think it's there, and I think it might be helpful for the whole family dynamic. So if that is one of the options that you're looking at, and if you've checked it out and you've researched it all and you've visited the place and your intention is right for this out-of-home placement, then definitely go for it. There's also, if the therapeutic home is, and maybe we can do a separate video as well about this, what to look for in a therapeutic home, but also looking for something where the home creates this family environment, and where the home keeps the family in the loop and continues this family relationship. So again, there is hope in your situation, even though maybe you're not feeling this hope because things might be feeling helpless at the moment. But again, seeking out those support groups, asking God to show you the right direction, the right provider for maybe a proper diagnosis. Maybe this video will help you to continue seeking out to make sure that you get a proper diagnosis from a professional who understands developmental trauma and reactive attachment disorder. Maybe seeking out the right therapist who can provide support which is based on trauma and reactive attachment disorder informed therapy. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and that you can share it with another adoptive parent who might want to hear this, or also a professional who is trying to understand more how to support families who are parenting a child with reactive attachment disorder. As I said, in future videos I'll be talking more about blocked care, so make sure that you subscribe so that you are informed when new videos come out. Share with other adoptive parents who you think might find this information helpful. Again, there's no worksheet, but there's going to be a link to a website about reactive attachment disorder, which I'm sure you'll find very helpful. And if you want practical support on this journey, I invite you to check out my group coaching program. It's a faith-informed, neuroscience-backed program for adoptive parents like you who are going through the post-adoption journey. You're not alone, there is still hope, and I'm so glad that you're here with us. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.